This date, among many others, are one of those anniversaries that we can never forget, and we pray like we wanted to. We wanted to because we had to keep our sanity, to keep what left of our brain focused, our heart not ripped open constantly. And yet, every time I'm dealing with a lot of anniversaries that are causing bad memories, but at the time, the memories were of agony. Does anybody remember what happened back in the late 80s? Hmm? Remember a space shuttle program, the space transportation system? Thing blasted off into space in 1981, and the world changed regarding our space interest, and we wanted it. We loved it. We breathed it in. We breathed it in. We were going back out there in Flash Gordon, but this time was just a space truck. Going upstairs and back, going upstairs and back. Always upstairs and back. And the hardest damn thing to deal with. The hardest damn thing to deal with is the unimaginative outcome of a system going up in smoke. NASA, back in 1966 in January, a couple of days ago of a date, had to deal with a plugs out test. In order for the Apollo space capsule to be airtight and nothing loose, at a certain level of sea level where they were at, high in the sky in a tower, in a white lab coat, they tested. Actually, I don't think it was all that high. It was down below. Didn't matter. They had their own rooms closed in. Everything had to be perfect. Everything had to be working perfectly because this ship had to go to the moon without anything popping off, without any leaks, without any troubles, without any problems. And they did the plugs out for the planes. They did the plugs out for the Mercury, for the Geminis. And now they were doing it for the Apollo. They used it as a routine situation. But this was a new ship that they were testing out. How did they know? How could they have known that there were manufacturer defects in the damn thing without tearing it apart and taking pictures all over it? You got sloppy in one particular manufacturing place. And yes, they have this on public record decades later. So when it plugs out test, when they're pumping in full of 100% oxygen in a pressurized spam can, did they know that so many times that a wire can get rubbed the wrong way, it can cause a short somehow, and material to be flammable was good old Velcro. They had to have Velcro all over the place to keep things secure so they didn't have them floating around all over the place. Little dot here, little dot here, little dot here. But it didn't matter. It still caused her death. Edward White, Gus Grissom, Roger Chaffee. Never had a chance. The first tragedy that NASA actually, well, not the first tragedy. There had been test pilots sent all over the country to promote the space program. And they died in various accidents. NASA was not immune to accidents. But it never should have happened on our bigger ships. It didn't happen on the Mercury or the Gemini, except mishaps happening. They didn't lose any of the Gemini ships, but they lost an Apollo ship because of carelessness, lack of imagination. They've been doing it for so long, they thought they knew the routine. They couldn't bother to think that there could have been something else that could have been wrong with the damn ship. A new ship. They didn't think that there was going to be any issues with it. And yet there was the smoke, and there was the fire. And three firemen, actually three astronauts, got turned into smoked astronauts. And the world mourned, and Russia laughed. Decades later, we're coming into the same situation that we didn't even suspect. We didn't even expect this. Because this was something that we should have thought of in the first place as engineers, but we didn't. How can a huge space system, an orbital spaceship, huge external tank with two side boosters to get the ship up there, how could they have expected temperature variances affecting gasket seals, and then having the gaskets fly through a solid rocket booster and then the external tank, and then watch everything else go boom? And the thing we're seeing left, debris. And a part of that debris that you couldn't even see up close. I mean, where the camera angle was and where they were watching. One of them was the control deck, the cockpit, fighting for their lives until they hit, and then they were dead. But everyone was caught off with the flashbang. Everyone was seeing the flashbang. It took them weeks to figure the thing out by looking at the tapes, that the astronauts may have had a chance and lost it. Chance for survival. Apollo 1 never had it. Challenger never had it. Years later, Columbia should have had it and didn't. They didn't think. They didn't plan ahead. Who would have known that there was a zipper effect that could have affected their lives? That we lost another space shuttle to tragedy. One little tile, too little tile. What could it hurt? They blasted out maybe a few tiles. But they were in space. What could they do? They didn't have the glue necessary to fix it. They didn't have the engineering skills to fix the damn thing. If they actually had an engineer on board who knew the systems backward and forward, who could fix the damn ship, maybe they would have and survived the impact and been able to tell the tale. But no, nobody thought of it in NASA. Nobody ever thought of it in NASA at the point over here, that you needed an engineer. Hell, we could do sci-fi shows and movies and always have the pilot or somebody else with engineering skills going inside or outside, in between stuff, trying to fix what was broken to save the day. And yet, why didn't NASA think of this shit? Every time there's a ship launched, there's never an engineer when you need one. There's never a Scotty with his toolkit ready to go. I said before, years later, Columbia had its problem. The unzippering effect of the tiles allowed gases to go into the ship and caused the ship to explode in midair. Actually, have the ship tear itself apart upon re-entry into the atmosphere. Columbia turned itself into a maraca, exploding. Pieces scattered across the sky. Streaks. Today was one of those days that astronauts and administrators go to a plaque and go to an area where flags are set up and pay tribute to the fallen. From the test pilots all the way to the actual astronauts. And they still keep going because they must. And this time it's the commercial that leads the way because they no longer have the space transportation system. They no longer have their space truck. No, because now we have the civilians at work who've tested and tested and tested and tested and tested and tested to make sure that every system was working perfectly. And then they automate the whole thing. What I'm waiting for right now is waiting for the system to work and not blow up, not do a leak check, not having leaks in the ship, not even having anything hammer into the damn ship and causing explosive decompression to where astronauts die in space. And no engineer to help them out. No Scotty. I have been far too much in science fiction that I've always expected there should have been a Scotty out there to help him out. There should have been somebody out there with technical expertise. And yet they keep feeling that their spam of the can is safe without an engineer being brought on board because they think they got the odds beat. I hate to tell them, the odds are never beaten. Never. It just takes another one. It just takes another one. I don't mourn as other people do. I'm mad and I'm sad. Mad because it could have been prevented, and sad it wasn't. Because of lack of imagination, lack of human ingenuity. Pushed aside for human indifference, human arrogance, and watch another accident take more lives. That's what I'm seeing these days. Too many of them. Way too many of them. On this anniversary, we commiserate. We do not commemorate, but we commiserate. Those who were the test pilots, those who were lost in the That's the space program. Let us hope we don't have to do any further commiserations for the civilians lining up to lose their lives as well in the near future. Space is not kind. Space travel is not kind. It tests you. It tasks you. It asks if you're up for the challenge. I just hope your luck doesn't run out.